What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again. Today I wanted to do a video that I did last year, and I got to come back to because it's a new season, and we're going to be looking at pressure for teams in the 2022-23 season. That sounds weird to say after I've been saying 2021-22 for so long. But yeah, this is basically an index of what teams have the most pressure on them, I believe, going into the season, and the bottom one is going to be pretty simple. We'll start with that one at number 32. If I can get it out. It's really crumped here. Number 32, we have the Arizona Coyotes, without question. Going for Connor Bedard. They got Logan Cooley in this draft. We'll see if they enjoy the pick. He's going back to school for another year, so they're not going to see him this year, which I think is good because they're going to be just as bad. And they also have a lot of contracts up, so we're going to see which players have. They basically only have Gostisbehere, Keller, Chikrin, who's likely to be moved. That's all I've been hearing, and Ladd. And those are the only. And then they picked up some other players, not any substantial guys, but they have been. They're trying to be bad. That's the point. They're trying to be bad. I feel like there's going to be a lot of teams that try to be bad this year. Once it gets to it, once there's a sell off, there's going to be a lot of teams that they can try to sell off, trying to get the first overall pick or even the second, which is going to be the Bedard Michkov. And right now, the most likely to get Michkov would be at number 31, my hometown Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago, what else is there to say? They've traded off all of their young stars and kept their old ones for the rebuild. We'll see if this works. Taves and Kane are still here as I'm recording this. They brought in Andreas Athanasiou, Max Domi, Colin Blackwell, Alex Stalock, Peter Mrazek. People you'd expect to be on a fringe, one of the worst teams in the league. But we'll see how the season for Chicago goes. I think if they get Bedard, then I'll be one of the happiest people on earth. So we'll see how that goes. At number 30, we have Montreal. They had the number 1 pick. They chose Slafkovsky. We'll see how he develops. And, of course, planes always flying over the house. But we'll see how he develops. Montreal's not going to be too good this year in a stacked Atlantic division. And, it's kind of the same way as Chicago and Arizona. Those are the bottom 3 at this point. And at number 29, we have Anaheim, who says they're in a rebuild, yet they picked up some assets. That's why I think there's no pressure on them. Remember, this is a pressure index. And, Anaheim, they brought in Vetrano, they brought in Strome, they brought in Klingberg. But there's not much pressure on them, to be honest. Everyone knows they're in a rebuild. These bottom teams are in a rebuild, or not, or just are so bad that they don't have any pressure on them. So, yeah. At number 28, we have San Jose, which is one of those teams that is so bad that there's not really any pressure on them. But that's kind of like where that's kind of the top of the rebuilds. That should be teams that should be in a rebuild section. Not many dynamic players in San Jose. They still have Couture, but they still have Carlson. They still have Hurdle. Not many dynamic players, though. Number 27, we have Buffalo, who some people have picked to go to the playoffs this year, and I honestly think they might finish below Montreal. I think that Jack Eichel trade kind of spurred up that they got Alex Tuch going. He's traded there, and I think they might come back down to earth after what was a really strong finish to last season. And I don't know. We'll see. I think the highest they'll get is 7th. But yeah, Buffalo. This isn't a preseason predictions. This is, as I said, pressure. But yeah, not much pressure on Buffalo this year. Coming down the road soon in the coming seasons, there is going to be definitely some pressure. At number 26 and 25, they kind of go together. We have Colorado and Tampa. Colorado, the last Stanley Cup winner. There is a little pressure on them to repeat. And Tampa, they've just been to their 3rd straight final. There's no pressure. They've done more than their fans probably could ask for. But Colorado and Tampa, they've exceeded their pressures from last year, and for that reward, they really don't have much pressure on them other than make the playoffs this year. And number 24 is more of a personal one, Dallas. Ben and Sagan's contracts are a pain. That's kind of what makes them lose pressure for me. They don't have Robertson or Ottinger signed, at least as far as I know. They just kind of are just meandering, and there's not much pressure on a team that's meandering, if you ask me, on what to do, because damn planes. So Dallas is similar to Philadelphia at number 23, who Chuck Fletcher should never be a GM in the NHL again, and the reason they're up so high is I have pressure on them. Pressure to get Chuck Fletcher fired. If he is not fired by the end of this year, or if Philly somehow makes the playoffs, or Tortorella does wonders and they are a top 3 team in the Metropolitan, firstly, I'll be doing backflips and just confusion. Secondly, it saves his job, to be honest. And then at number 22, because of the cap space situation, is Minnesota. They lose a lot of their cap space. They get Kaprizov around. They have Zuccarello. They have Fleury and net, and Spurgeon and Dumba still on the blue line with Brodin. They still have a stronger core, but the question is whether or not they're going to be able to maintain it with the cap space. Will their young guys be able to develop? And we'll see Rossi. So right now the pressure on them, it's not too much with the cap space situation. It's understandable. Buying out Suter and Parise, was it the right move? Parise, yes. Suter, for the how much he was being paid, I'm going to say yes. I think it's a good move for now, so that when it finally is up, they're all of a sudden going to have all this cap space to work with, and we'll see what happens. Now at number 21 we have Boston, and this is simply injuries. At the start of the year, Boston's not going to have McAvoy, Marchand, trying to remember all the players. There were so many players, but they're not going to have them two for a good portion of the year. Bergeron and Krejci are back. Will they be as effective? Krejci hasn't been in the North American game. Will it take time for him to adjust? So there's not too much pressure in Boston as there is most years. If they had a full healthy team, yeah, they would be probably in the top 15 in pressure, because with the rising Atlantic teams in Ottawa and Detroit, yeah. Now number 20, New Jersey, because New Jersey has pressure on them just to make improvements. They've added to their team. They had Jack Hughes should be a star. Nico Hischier should be an upcoming star. He's not a Jack Hughes. He's more of a defensive specialist, more of a second-line center. But at the 2017 draft, Makar and everybody else at this point. But, so New Jersey, it's just to show that progress is being made, and it's unfortunate that they're in the Metropolitan. Right now, the Central Division, I think, would be a place you'd want to be for making progress. Central Division, I think, might be the weakest division this year, and we'll see if those predictions are correct, but right now, Devils, they have some mounting pressure from last year. At number 19, we have Seattle. Hopefully this magnet can fit, doing the best I can. There we go. Seattle, they've added Bjorkstrand. They're going to get a full season of Beniers, a full season of Shane Wright. This team is bound to be better. I wouldn't be surprised if they are still playing meaningful games, unlike last year, by the time April or March runs around. I think they'll make the playoffs? We'll see. But the Pacific Division, I think, is going to be getting very competitive this season, and I think we're going to see sort of a shift of the guard between the Pacific and the Central Division. But yeah, Seattle's going to be a big part, and now that it's their second season, they've added. There's some mounting pressure on them to make the playoffs at least. Now at number 18, we have Winnipeg, and it's one of those where you look at their roster, and I think Andrew Kopp was a bigger piece now that people are giving credit for. Because I look at their roster and I'm thinking, this is not a playoff roster. They have 1.5 lines, and that's about it. Their defense is not great, and their goaltending is hellebuck. So, what Winnipeg is, for me, it's not as much pressure as some teams, but Winnipeg is going to be an interesting team to watch this year. I wouldn't be surprised if people's expectations lowered as they actually start looking at the rosters upcoming. And of course, there's a lot of free agents that are still not signed that could change things. Kadri, Kessel, other more depth pieces, but we'll see. Number 17, we have Ottawa. Ottawa, they've added a ton. They've won free agency. They've won the offseason, to be honest. And Ottawa's pressure, a lot of these guys are young, and they're not making a ton of money yet. So there's still the pressure for Ottawa. I think is going to jump a bit next year to see what they can do this year. But Ottawa right now, it kind of goes along with Detroit. The eyes are playing. And since both of these teams are making big jumps this year, hopefully, it'll be next year that they make the jump into, they're in the top 12. These teams have some genuine pressure on them to start going against the old guards of teams, the ones that, Toronto, Tampa, Florida's not really old guard yet, Boston, Pittsburgh, Washington, those teams. Now, at number 15, we have Nashville. Nashville believes they can still be competitive, and judging by last season, where Duchesne had 40 goals, if he can repeat that performance, I don't see why they can't. But yeah, the pressure's on Nashville now to be able to climb into those Central Division spots, as Minnesota's been weakened. Dallas is Dallas. And while college coaching really isn't a factor to me too much in pressure, like Dallas now has Peter DeBoer behind the bench. Vegas now has there's been like 14, 15 coaching changes. It's not that big of a factor, to be honest. But yeah, Nashville. There's some pressure on Nashville. Number 14, maybe I'm overrating it a bit. Columbus. Columbus, with Johnny Gaudreau being added to the lineup, there's mounting pressure in Columbus to win now and keep building towards a winner, because Gaudreau ain't going to be young forever. His 7-year deal, he's 28. It'll take him till he's about 35, 36. So we'll see how this goes for Columbus. If they don't have success, it shows that they can bring in star players. Maybe this will get star players to start going there. It's been a theme for a while, and now that Gaudreau's gone there, hopefully it starts lightening up. It made Laine stick around. So Gaudreau and Laine, and then we'll see the young guys like Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, Boqvist. Those guys stepping up, as there's going to be a bit of pressure on Columbus this year. At number 13, we have Vancouver. This is more of a personal one, I must agree. People don't look at Vancouver the way I do. I look at what could be a good roster and a playoff roster. And right now, I don't see a lot of people saying that. I see a lot of people saying, okay, maybe make the playoffs, maybe not, more leaning towards not. And I look at that roster, I think, how does this roster not make the playoffs? They have a great top 9. Their defense has been Ekman Larsson's played well. They have Quinn Hughes. They have Tyler Myers is on his last year of his contract. I think it's this year. So they'll have some cap space next year. So we're going to see how well Vancouver does. This is more of personal pressure I'm putting on them to really bring it on and start getting toward, and with this full season of Boudreau behind the bench, this team should be a playoff team. Now at number 12, we have the Islanders trying to make a jump back into the playoffs. 1 second. Mouth gets dry when you talk for that long straight. Yeah, but the Islanders, if they bring in Kadri, it's even more pressure to get back into the playoffs alone, but Islanders have a bit of pressure on them to jump back up. Barry Trotz isn't there anymore, so we'll see. Now that they don't start with a 13-game road trip, we'll see if that changes things and they start hot off right away. But yeah, the Islanders have some mounting pressure on them to get back to where they were. Number 11, we have the Kings, and for the Kings, it's to exceed from where they were last year. They nearly had a 3-2 series lead on Edmonton in that first round series. They ended up losing game 6 and 7, but Edmonton, it's been a while since Edmonton's had a breakthrough, and this breakthrough I think was huge for them. But yeah, LA, I'm looking to them to be a top 3 team in the Pacific once again. So there's going to be some pressure on them, and bringing in Fiala as well. Weren't very active in free agency, but the big addition of Fiala is going to be what everyone's looking at, and with him and Deneau, Dustin Brown's gone, so there's going to need a bit added to the leadership. So we'll see if LA's up to the task. Number 10, we have Washington. Washington still thinks they can be competitive, and with that comes the pressure of getting back to where they were in 2018 and getting Ovechkin a second cup. It's kind of just putting the pressure upon yourself. And that's similar to what Vegas is doing at number 9, trading up Max Pacioretty and trying to get under the cap floor, getting rid of Dadonov, Pacioretty. So now they're barely under the cap, I think, maybe. But with the Riley Smith contract, they've kept him around. Vegas, Washington, and... Well, actually, I'll wait for that one. But right now, Vegas and Washington are doing something similar to a team that I have higher on the list are doing. And with that, we'll bring in number 8 and 7 because 8 without 7. Pittsburgh doubling down on Malkin and Crosby for the next half decade, basically. Malkin, Crosby, and Letang. Crosby's fine, but the Malkin, Letang getting 6 years, Malkin getting 4 years. This has nothing to do with St. Louis, but Pittsburgh doing that puts a substantial amount of pressure on them to win. And if they don't do that, it's not going to look great on Pittsburgh's part. So yeah, Pittsburgh, Vegas, and Washington for sure are the 3 teams that are sticking keeping with the guys they've had around, excluding Pacioretty. But Pittsburgh re-signing Rust as well. We'll see, and they've also revamped their blue line to win now as well. So Pittsburgh is going to be an interesting team to watch, and if they struggle out of the gate, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, lots of pressure on Pittsburgh. St. Louis is just there because they went to the second round last year, had a good year, proved they can still win with the team that they have. And if they had a healthy defense, who knows how much they would have gone for. So yeah, there's some pressure on St. Louis to get back and go further to where they were in 2019. Number 6, we have Calgary. And Calgary, they lose Gaudreau and Tkachuk, so that brings them down a little bit. But they also gain Huberdeau, and they're still in a win-now mode. They have a few years to win now, and they're looking to extend Weegar. They've already extended Huberdeau to that massive deal. So we'll see if Calgary is able to live up to the hype that they had last year, except with a whole new star roster. Number 5, we have Carolina. They brought in Pacioretty, who's not going to be ready for 6 months as of recent news. They bring in Brent Burns, and they've always been able to recreate. They've been able to bring in players to fit when other players leave in free agency or via trade. Pacioretty, basically, it was given to them for free. They have Dylan Coghlan to shore up the depth on the defense. They brought in Brent Burns to be an offensive puck-moving defenseman that they lost with D'Angelo. So we'll see. Carolina is going to have pressure on them to be a top team in the East every year now, and we'll see if they can keep up. Number 4, we have the Rangers, and their run to the conference final added a whole bunch of pressure to them. Rangers having the biggest market in all of North America, and Toronto. New York is going to be bigger than Toronto, and it's the most populated market, I should say, not biggest market. Toronto's the biggest hockey market, but the Rangers the biggest market. You get the idea. But yeah, so the Rangers. After that performance, they lose Ryan Strome and Frank Vatrano. There's still going to be amounts of pressure on them to succeed. They also lost Andrew Kopp. They lost a lot of play. Pete Georgiev, they lost a lot, to be honest. But Shesterkin off a great season. Panarin, Zibanejad, their stars are coming back. So we'll see if they are able to live up to the pressure. That's going to be probably put on them a bit unfairly because the Rangers, I think, I want to say fluked, but even though I predicted them going to the conference final, I can't see them getting back there. Number 3, wrong one, I have Florida. And I have Toronto at number 2. So we'll go through Florida first. So Florida, they bring in Matthew Tkachuk, pressure instantly, to win now. They bring him in, sign him to a massive deal. Florida's in win now mode. And after last year's disappointing second round exit and a sweep to their across state rivals, tons of pressure on Florida. Toronto, 2 years left of Matthews before he possibly leaves. It'd be hilarious if he went to Arizona, and I kind of am hoping for it just because Arizona deserves someone like that. And but yeah, Toronto, they have a 2-year window before Matthews gets paid. Marner and Tavares have the 2025, Nylander in 2024. So they've already paid Riley, and we'll see if they are able to pay the rest of those guys when their contracts are up. But the pressure is mounting in Toronto. I thought it decreased a little last year after the collapse against Montreal, but after they go with 7 games against Tampa, I think there's pressure on them much more than there was last year, to be honest. And number 1, we have Edmonton. They bring in Jack Campbell. The one thing they needed was goaltending. Campbell, we'll see if he's able to be a suitable replacement for Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. Stuart Skinner's probably going to be the backup. They brought back Evander Kane. Everything is set for Edmonton to be a dynamic team once again that they were in the 80s and the early 90s. Not really the early 90s, mostly the 80s. But yeah, this is my pressure index for this year. Tell me who you think has the most pressure on them going into next season. Who do you think has the least pressure? Who do you think... What would you change about my list? Who would you say that I had... Who would you think... I can't speak. Who would you think that I had a lot of pressure, maybe doesn't have as much pressure as I think, and vice versa? Anyway, that's really all I have for you guys today. Maybe an NHL video soon, thinking about over the next couple days. Of course, I got work starting up again, and school starts next week, so that's just going to be swimmingly fun. But the NHL is getting closer and closer to start. Preseason starts in late September, and we are almost mid-August now, so we're getting there. We're getting closer and closer to hockey season. BFRs are almost back, But that's going to be all for this one. I want to thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.